Howdy, I'm Matt, Chief of the Flutter Bounty Hunters, and today I'd like to talk to you about writing pull requests to get your changes merged into Flutter Bounty Hunter projects and perhaps other projects in the open source ecosystem. Let's jump into it. So we're talking about how to write a pull request. That's kind of like saying how to write code. We could talk about it forever. There's no end to the possible details, but we're going to cover some of the big points here when it comes to pull requests. So first, let's say you're a Flutter Bounty Hunter. It's important to remember that your job isn't done until your pull request is merged. What we do is deliver value to our clients. We have clients that need these packages to do something so that they can ship their application on top. If they can't use the ability, they haven't gotten the value, they haven't gotten what they've paid for, and that means you haven't finished your job. You must get pull requests across the finish line. And in fact, I would suggest that you think about this from the get-go. Instead of thinking about how to get a PR merged in at the end, think from the beginning about what might make it difficult for you to get something merged. This is where you might think about writing a proposal first, or you might jump over to Slack and send some ideas by some other people before you jump in and invest the time. But those are discussions for another day. Let's assume you get to the pull request. What should you do? Here's a high-level list of things to consider. Describe the goal of the code that you're merging in. Where relevant, describe any problems you ran into and any solutions that you chose. Include screenshots and videos. Review your changes before you ask me to review your changes, and always expect change requests. Let's walk through these at a very high level. Describe the goal. Let's look at an example. Here's a pull request that I put up in, December 2021. The very first line says, implements drag handles, magnifiers, and floating toolbars with Android and iOS styling. One sentence, concise, and immediately you have a pretty good idea of what to expect in this pull request. And in this regard, writing a pull request is very similar to writing Dart docs for a class or a method. Start with one sentence that summarizes why we're all here. Now, sure, there is a ticket referenced somewhere that you're handling, but why are you going to make me go click on the ticket? I'm already looking at the PR. Why don't you just tell me why we're here? Don't make me go somewhere else. If there's some situation where I absolutely have to, then okay, I will. But if you can just tell me why we're here and skip me linking to a ticket, that's saving me some time. And the more time you save me, the more you help your own case, the more likely you're going to get a quick and effective review. Start with a very, very brief summary of what you've implemented, why we're here, what is this pull request. Give me some context. I'm working on a dozen different projects. I'm reviewing code from dozens of developers. What is happening in this PR? Make it easy for me. Describe the problems you hit and how you solve them. Depending on the problems and the solutions, these might be very brief or they might be quite detailed. From that same example, let's look at some problems. All right, so I've highlighted some pieces here. Let's just read through them. I pulled out a couple auto-scrolling tools that are shared. First, there's an auto-scroller that can animate scrolling up and down whenever you tell it to. This isn't unique to mobile or documents. It just combines a per-frame ticker with a scroll position so that we don't need to repeat the auto-scroll animation code everywhere. So the problem essentially is that there was this duplicated functionality. I wanted to deduplicate it. What I did was I created this auto scroller. I'm predicting what you might think. And I'm saying this isn't, even though this PR is all about mobile stuff, this isn't just about mobile. When you review the auto scroller, expect it to apply to anything that runs on a ticker, anything you want to scroll with a scroll position. But I say second, there's a drag handle auto scroller, which is built on top of auto scroller. The drag handle auto scroller takes a viewport rectangle along with a given handle offset in that rectangle, and then drag handle auto scroller makes decisions about whether to auto scroll up, auto scroll down, or stop auto scrolling. I say here again, we'd have to implement this for both Android and iOS if I didn't pull out drag handle auto scroller into its own class. So I'm explaining my decision process. I've told you what I've built, I've implied why I built it, and I even justified the existence of that class. Finally, I defined a scrollable document widget that wraps the given child with a single child scroll view, but only if there's no ancestor scrollable. This is a widget structure that's needed by both Android and iOS. Now that one actually probably could have used a little bit more elaboration on why do I include a single child scroll view only sometimes? What's the purpose? Now the actual purpose is that when there is an ancestor scrollable, we defer to it, and that's why we don't include our own. I could have included that description here. But the point is, those are 3 solutions that I created, which obviously deal with 3 problems. And I'm giving the reviewer an idea about what I did and why I did it. Because it's important to know what I did and why I did it. Reviews are not meant to be rubber stamps. We're supposed to be really thinking about what's being added to the code base. And that requires as much input from you, the person writing the code, as me, the person reviewing the code. Include screenshots and or videos. This is not something that you have to do all the time, but it is often very useful and it's very easy to do. So wherever it makes sense, put in some screenshots, put in a video. Again, going back to that same pull request, if you open it up on GitHub, here's a video. You can actually see a video of a drag handle, a caret, magnifier. You can kind of see all the visuals that are implemented in one quick video. That's very useful. It contextualizes the code. Keep that in mind when you're putting up pull requests. Review your changes. If you haven't even read through your own changes line by line, why are you asking me to read through your changes line by line? In a pull request, you can open up the files changed and you can read absolutely everything that you're about to commit. And if there's anything that you see that isn't right, if you find missing docs, if you find poor names, if you find too much in a file, or you find things in separate files that should be in one, if you can identify issues yourself with your PR, it would be irresponsible to wait for me to comment on it for you to make the fix. By the time that you ask someone to review your pull request, you should feel like there's no more work for you to do, that you have done everything you need to do the way you need to do it. That begins with you reviewing your own PR. And if you need to push some updates to it, you push some updates to it. Once you get your PR in a form where you are completely happy with everything, then you ask for a review, and then we come to the final detail. Second to final detail here to drive the point home. It is your job to make sure the pull request can get merged. Just because someone's asking for changes doesn't mean they're a bad guy. It doesn't mean they're being overly pedantic. Don't look at the reviewer as the enemy. This is a process that we all go through. It is your job to make it as easy and quick for someone like me to review your code and get it merged. We're not going to accept bad documentation or an absence of documentation. We're not going to accept bad names or poor functional decomposition. We're not going to accept messy code that no one can read. That we're simply not going to do it, because once we start accepting it, we never stop. Once we start accepting it, code quality only goes down. So you have to know that you're going to need to meet certain expectations, and your job is to make it as quick and easy to meet them as possible, with the understanding that probably no matter what you do, there will be requests for change. You should always expect change requests. Maybe it's the wording of a Dart doc. Maybe it's adding a comment somewhere, or even changing a comment. It might be really minor stuff overall, But the PR is the last place we have to make those changes. After that, whatever you've done is in the real official shared code base for everyone. And at that point, we're no longer adding, we're altering. We have to go do surgery beyond that point. And even if we tell ourselves, oh, we'll come back to fix that, no, we probably won't. So we have to get it as right as we can in a pull request. And that means even when you think everything is perfect, someone is going to come by and request changes. It's just the nature of the beast. Okay? So that is at a high level how you can write pull requests that more quickly and easily get merged in. Those are the kinds of expectations that you should keep in mind when you're working on Flutter Bounty Hunter projects. Now, if you're not a member of the Flutter Bounty Hunters, thank you for watching this. If you're an experienced Flutter or Dart developer and you'd like to become a Flutter Bounty Hunter, head on over to Flutter Bounties on Twitter. There's a link to the application in the bio. Also, if you're a team or a company that's looking for help building infrastructure that your company needs and you'd like to fund a project with the Flutter Bounty Hunters, head on over to flutterbountyhunters.com. You can send me a message, or at Flutter Bounties on Twitter, you can send me a direct message. We can talk about what your project might look like, get a milestone set up, get it funded, maybe find some other companies to fund it as well and split the cost. But all that said, if you want to stay up to date with this content, please hit that subscribe button and y'all come back now. You hear?